Close your eyes and think of BMW. What image comes to mind? A sleek sports sedan powering through a mountain pass. A car whose emblem, that blue and white roundel, is universally understood to mean one thing: precision, driving dynamics, the gold standard of German performance. Today we simply assume BMW makes the fastest, most capable, and most exciting luxury cars on the planet. This is the bedrock of their entire commercial identity. But rewind the clock 50 years, and you would be looking at a completely different landscape. In the mid-1970s, BMW was respected. Yes, they were practical, well-engineered, and certainly a step above the average economy car. They were the clever alternative for European professionals. The famous 2002 model had given the world a taste of a sporty sedan, proving that logic and emotion could coexist. Yet, BMW was not seen as a performance powerhouse. They were not viewed through the same lens as, say, Porsche, who owned the high-performance spectrum, or even Jaguar. To the global automotive audience, BMW was sensible, competent, solid. But they lacked that special something. They had no flagship performance icon. They had no definitive signature model that could scream, "We are the absolute best, and here is the proof." The world respected them, but they didn't worship them. So, how did a company that was known for making sensible executive cars become the absolute architect of the sports sedan? How did they create a brand that defined a genre? How did they go from being a manufacturer of fine automobiles to the standard bearer for the ultimate driving machine? The answer isn't a long marketing campaign or a slow evolutionary shift. The answer is one single, focused, and truly extraordinary moment of automotive engineering. It is the story of a car that was built for the racetrack but accidentally captured the soul of a generation. It is the story of the E30 M3. This one car didn't just win a lot of races, it took an entire company on its back and single-handedly built a reputation that endures today. This is the story of how the E30 M3 that changed BMW forever, and how, in the process, it changed the car world. To truly understand how this moment came to be, we have to look back at the situation in Munich in the late 1970s and early 1980s, a fascinating period, both for the world and for BMW. Internally, BMW was at a turning point. They had just launched the 7 Series, firmly establishing themselves in the luxury limousine class. The 5 Series was the benchmark for the modern business sedan. The new 3 Series, the E21, was proving to be a huge sales success, the first real high-volume car for the brand. Financially, things were stable. Operationally, they were efficient. But emotionally, they were missing a soul. Look at the automotive world around them. It was a time of extremes. On one side, you had the tail end of the muscular, high-displacement American V8 era. On the other, the beginning of the crazy, turbo-lag-filled era of 1980s sports cars. Ferrari was pushing the limit of speed. Porsche was, of course, the undisputed king of the sports coupe, its dominance in motorsport trickling down to the legendary 911. BMW sat in the middle. They were defined by engineering but lacked passion. Their marketing centered on reliability and practicality. The efficient dynamic, great for selling to accountants and architects, but not for capturing the imagination of a teenager looking at a poster on their bedroom wall. Furthermore, their motorsport efforts, while noble, were fractured. They had been highly successful in Formula 2 with their engine technology, and the legendary 3.0 CSL, with its massive wings and racing stripes, had truly dominated the European Touring Car Championship in the mid-1970s. But the CSL, as magnificent as it was not a production car people could relate to. It was a hand-built, lightweight exotic that felt disconnected from the everyday 3 Series or 5 Series. The public didn't draw a direct line from CSL dominance to the E125-2. Oh, they saw at the dealership. BMW knew that if they truly wanted to be a global performance player, if they wanted people to look at their emblem and feel that same primal desire as when they saw a Porsche crest, they needed something more. They needed a car that was accessible yet extraordinary. A car that took all that incredible engineering capability and unleashed it in a package that anyone could buy but nobody had ever built before. They didn't just need another engine, they needed a symbol. And this is where the story truly begins. This is the moment when BMW made a decision that would redefine them for the next half-century. They decided to stop simply reacting to the market and start defining it. They didn't just want to compete on the track. They wanted to build the greatest racing saloon the world had ever seen. And they decided that the only way to do that was to build the car, first, as a road-going machine. This need to win, this singular focus on building the ultimate performance car, brought us to the birth of something special. BMW knew that this project was too complex, too specialized for its main engineering departments. They needed a separate, dedicated team, a group of people who thought about one thing and one thing only: winning. So BMW established a subsidiary company called, quite simply, BMW Motorsport, GmbH. This would be their dedicated racing department, a place where engineering took priority over accounting and where the sole focus was performance on the racetrack. Later, this division would shorten its name to a single, powerful letter: M. And who was given the task of leading this revolutionary new division? It was a man named Jochen Neerpasch. He was an experienced racer and team manager who had previously led Ford of Europe's racing efforts to incredible success. When he arrived at BMW, he brought with him a clear and uncompromising vision: win first, sell later. Neerpasch was a master of organization and branding. He looked at BMW's racing history and saw potential, but he also saw inefficiency. He unified their fragmented efforts. He created the iconic three-stripe, red, blue, and purple livery that would become synonymous with performance. And crucially, he understood that to truly win, the company needed to integrate its racing engineering into its road cars, just like Porsche did. Their first project was the legendary M1, a gorgeous mid-engine supercar designed specifically to take on Ferrari and Lamborghini in World Championship racing. It was a revolutionary car, a true flagship, and a massive technological leap for BMW. It was beautiful, fast, and it truly put BMW on the map as a supercar contender. So, if they already had the M1, why did they need something else? This is the great twist in the story. The M1, despite all its brilliance, was a commercial nightmare. Its complex production process, high cost, and internal corporate delays meant it missed its critical window for Group 4 and Group 5 racing. By the time it was fully homologated and ready to compete, the rules had changed and its competitive edge was gone. The M1 was a beautiful failure, a supercar without a championship to win. This was a crushing blow, both financially and to the brand's pride. BMW's flagship project had been a misfire. The board was wary of expensive special projects. The M division, while talented, needed a way to justify its existence and deliver on its promise. And this leads us to the critical engineering problem of the 1980s. The focus in global motorsport was shifting. While high-end supercar racing was glamorous, the heart of competitive motorsports was in production-based cars. This was the era of touring car racing, the British Touring Car Championship, the French Supertourisme, and most importantly, the emerging Deutsche Tourenwagen-Meisterschaft, or DTM. In the early 80s, these championships were being dominated by cars like the Ford Sierra RS Cosworth, with its massive turbocharged engine and insane aerodynamics. These were everyday family cars, heavily modified to produce 500 or 600 horsepower, battling it out door to door. It was exciting, raw, and it created a direct connection between the racetrack and the showroom floor. The message to consumers was clear. If you want the championship-winning performance, you can buy the same car, almost, that you see racing on Sunday. BMW, looking at their sales success with the standard E33 series, realized that this was where they needed to win. The 3 Series was the backbone of their business. If they could dominate the DTM with a 3 Series-based racer, they could sell that success to millions. But there was a problem. Touring car rules in that era were strict, the rules of homologation. To race a car, the manufacturer had to prove that they had built and sold to the public a production version of that car that was fundamentally the same. For the Group A rules that would define the era, they needed to build 5,000 units within a 12-month period. And here was the massive problem. The standard E33 series, while a brilliant road car, was designed for comfort and mass production. It was not a race car. It was made of relatively heavy steel panels. Its engine, the reliable but not exactly high-performance M10 or M20 units, was not built for the constant redline-pounding abuse of racing. Its suspension was set up for safe, predictable handling, not the millimeter-precise responses required on the track. If you just took a standard 3 Series, gave it more power, and threw it on the track, it would be slow, unreliable, and completely outmatched by its purpose-built competitors. The engineering challenge was clear. BMW couldn't just race a 3 Series. They had to completely re-engineer it from the ground up to be a race car first, and then, only secondly, would it be a road car. This was a direct reversal of their standard procedure. Instead of starting with a road car and trying to make it fast, they would start with a vision of the ultimate race car, and then do the absolute minimum necessary to make it legal for the street. This concept, the homologation special, is rare and often yields the most extraordinary cars. It meant that every engineering decision on this new machine would have a purpose: to win championships. Cost, comfort, and general practicality, the standard pillars of BMW design, would be set aside in the pursuit of one thing only: performance. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of the most transformative cars in automotive history, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm show this video to more enthusiasts. And if you subscribe and hit the bell icon, you'll never miss another in-depth automotive documentary. Thanks for watching. Now, back to the story. So, how do you take a standard, mass-produced 3 Series sedan and turn it into a fire-breathing race car that any enthusiast could buy from a dealer? The engineering team at BMW Motorsport, now under the brilliant technical guidance of Paul Rosche, set to work on a blank sheet of paper. This machine had a simple directive: dominate touring car racing, and this directive influenced every single part. The design changes were drastic and immediate, separating the M3 from its ordinary sibling so clearly that even a casual observer knew this was something different. The first and most impactful decision was aerodynamic. On the racetrack, a car needs to cut through the air, but more importantly, it needs high-speed stability. The standard upright profile of the 3 Series created significant aerodynamic drag and rear-end lift at racing speeds, which was dangerous and slow. The solution was radical. The M3's body was a study in pure functional form. The most dramatic change was at the rear. The engineers fabricated an entirely new C-pillar, the section of the body connecting the rear roof to the car. This was made with a much steeper angle, designed to improve airflow and smooth out the turbulence that typically built up behind the standard coupe. This single change, more than anything else, gave the E30 M3 its unique, muscular silhouette. Then, to take full advantage of this new airflow, they added a functional trunk lid that was slightly raised and, of course, a massive fixed rear wing, which provided critical downforce at speed. Up front, a deep chin spoiler, integrated with a new front bumper and grille, managed the airflow under and around the car. Even the windshield was raked at a steeper angle and glued in, rather than using a rubber seal, which reduced drag and improved torsional rigidity. This body was then significantly widened. They added massive boxed-out fender flares to accommodate the wider wheels and tires that racing demanded. These weren't just for show. They allowed for completely re-engineered suspension geometry with wider track width, leading to massive improvements in mechanical grip and cornering stability. The original narrow, tall body of the 3 Series was gone, replaced by a wide-body Warrior. In total, only the roof panel and the door skins were shared with the standard E30 coupe. This entire design, this aggressive muscular stance, was a visual manifestation of its purpose. It wasn't built to look pretty. It was built to slice through the air and stick to the pavement at 180 miles per hour. This in itself was a powerful symbolic statement for BMW. But the heart and soul of any M car, the element that makes it truly legend, is its engine. And for the E30 M3, the power plant they created was nothing short of brilliant. BMW Motorsport faced another difficult engineering decision. The rules for touring car racing allowed for a maximum displacement, but they encouraged engine modification. For this car, the M10 engine, the 4-cylinder that had powered millions of BMWs and had been the basis for their legendary Formula One championship-winning engine, was the obvious and only starting point. But they couldn't just use a production M10 block. They needed something fundamentally stronger, with better internal components and the ability to spin at incredible RPMs for hours on end without failing. The solution came from a moment of pure, clever engineering, a masterstroke of design that would define the M3's character forever. The story goes that Paul Rosche simply took the legendary double overhead camshaft, DOHC cylinder head, from the exotic M1 supercar's straight 6 engine, cut off 2 cylinders, and bolted it onto the M10 4-cylinder engine block. This wasn't literally true, of course, but philosophically, it was perfect. The result was the legendary S14 engine. The S14 was a 2.3-liter, 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated masterpiece. And make no mistake, this was a race engine through and through. It had a reinforced block, lightweight pistons, and connecting rods designed for high speeds. But the magic was in the top end. It featured 4 valves per cylinder and separate individual throttle bodies for each cylinder, a configuration typically reserved only for race cars. This arrangement meant instantaneous throttle response, as air could enter the cylinder as fast as possible. The resulting power was incredible for its time. On the standard road-going car, it produced 200 horsepower. In 1986, from a 2.3-liter engine with no turbo, that was a staggering high-performance figure. But it wasn't the total power that made it special. It was how that power was delivered. This engine sang. It didn't provide a wave of low-end torque like an American V8. Instead, you had to work for it. You had to wring every bit of potential from it. As you pushed the gas pedal, the S14 woke up. It would spin faster and faster, its metallic, raw, angry four-square scream filling the cabin. The power simply built and built, reaching its peak all the way up at 6,750 revolutions per minute, with a redline that seemed impossibly high. And for this racing-derived engine, standard gearboxes were simply not strong enough or precise enough. So, they fitted it with a specialized 5-speed manual transmission, sourced from the racing specialists at Getrag. This was, as standard on early cars, a dogleg configuration, where first gear was down and to the left, which meant that the crucial second to third and fourth to fifth shifts, the ones used most on a track, were in a straight line, making them faster and more precise. This combination, a high-revving responsive engine, a direct transmission, and a wide, lightweight aerodynamic body, was the perfect performance recipe. This was not a car you just drove. This was a car that required you to be an engaged, skilled driver to get the best from it. But the final, perhaps most important engineering decision didn't involve the engine or the body at all. It was the decision not to use a turbocharger. This was the 1980s. Everyone, Ford, Lancia, Saab, Volvo, was starting to embrace the massive power and boost that turbocharging provided. It was seen as the inevitable future. Yet, the engineers at BMW Motorsport made a conscious, difficult decision. They knew that a turbo could provide more raw power, but they also knew it came with a huge penalty: lag. The delay between the driver pressing the throttle and the engine responding. On a racetrack, particularly in tight cornering touring car racing, throttle response is everything. It is what allows a driver to use the power to balance the car mid-corner, to make a pass, or to defend a position. A naturally aspirated engine provides a direct, linear, and utterly reliable connection between the driver's brain and the power going to the wheels. They prioritized control, precision, and drivability over sheer horsepower figures. It was this uncompromising purist engineering philosophy that would make the M3 unique. This single decision, more than any other, would go on to define the M Divison's soul for decades to come, creating a philosophy of purity and driver feedback that would be copied, but never truly duplicated. With its revolutionary wide body and high-revving race engine, the E30 M3 was a mechanical masterpiece. But engineering blueprints are one thing. The true terrifying test is what happens when that machine is pushed to its absolute limit on the racetrack. For all their brilliant design, could it actually perform? Could it justify the immense cost and effort? The racing career of the E30 M3 wasn't just successful, it was utterly complete and total dominance. It redefined the very concept of a winning touring car, creating a story of success that may never be matched. It debuted in 1987, both on the road and on the track, and immediately the impact was catastrophic for the competition. It didn't just win, it made everything else look clumsy and slow. Its lightweight body and perfectly tuned suspension made it incredibly agile. It could out-corner, out-brake, and out-accelerate its turbocharged rivals. On the tight, winding, street-based circuits of the BTCC and DTM, the M3 could exploit its razor-sharp handling and instant throttle response to make its rivals look like heavy buses. Its reliability, a direct result of that over-engineered S14 race engine, was legendary. The success was simply staggering. The E30 M3 didn't just win the German DTM, Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, once. It won the Drivers' Championship for its driver, Eric van de Poel, in its debut year, 1987. Then it won the Manufacturers' Championship. Then it won the Drivers' Championship again in 1989 with the legendary Roberto Ravaglia. But its dominance was not confined to Germany. It was a global weapon. It absolutely crushed the competition in the European Touring Car Championship, winning multiple titles. It was the champion in the British Touring Car Championship. It was the champion in the French Super Tourism Championship. It was the champion in the Italian Touring Car Championship. It won in Australia. It won in Japan. It conquered the toughest race of all, the legendary Nürburgring 24 Hours. And it didn't just win once. It dominated that grueling race 4 times. It also won the Spa-Francorchamps 24 Hours, another of the world's great endurance challenges. It even found success in rallies, winning the legendary Tour de Corse. The M3's performance was so dominant, so all-encompassing, that the competition was left in a state of crisis. The previously successful Ford Sierras and Volvo 240 turbos could not compete with the M3's combination of agility and raw pace. Race rules had to be changed repeatedly just to slow the BMWs down, and still, they kept winning. The iconic video footage of a bright red M3 with the M Colors livery, balanced on three wheels as it rockets through a chicane, the engine screaming at 9,000 revolutions per minute, remains one of the most iconic sights in all of motorsport. The E30 M3's racing story isn't just about trophies. It's about total supremacy. It wasn't the fastest in a straight line, but in the environment of touring car racing, on tight tracks, on winding road circuits, over an entire brutal championship season. It was simply, undeniably, the perfect tool. It won, again and again, more championships, in more countries, in more disciplines than any other car had ever achieved. The E30 M3 had not just delivered on its promise, it had created a legacy that was, and remains, unmatched. This total dominance on the racetrack had a dramatic, direct, and immediate effect on the public's perception of the car they saw at the BMW dealership. Think about that engineering problem from before: how to make sensible cars exciting. BMW now had the perfect solution. The public didn't draw a line between a standard E30 and the M3. The two were inextricably linked. Every advertisement, every marketing campaign, every piece of promotional material now centered on this single, beautiful concept. This is the car that wins championships. This marketing was brilliant and powerful. It wasn't about clever jingles or abstract lifestyle concepts. It was about the raw, irrefutable data points. They didn't just tell the public their cars were high performance. They showed them. One famous and evocative commercial simply featured footage of an M3 on a racetrack, with a powerful voiceover saying, "The new BMW M3. From a standing start, it has won championships in every country in Europe. It is, quite simply, the fastest thing that can still sit in the driveway." The connection was established instantly. If you owned an E33 the very entry-level model, you were part of that world. Your car's bloodline, the very family tree it was a part of, included this all-conquering, high-revving champion. This created a completely new, emotional bond between the driver and the BMW brand. The blue and white roundel didn't just stand for precision and German engineering anymore. Now, it stood for competition, victory, and raw performance. It was a status symbol, but not of wealth. It was a status symbol of understanding, a sign that you were an automotive enthusiast, someone who appreciated the finest engineering in the world. Public perception changed almost overnight. People no longer saw BMW as a safe, clever alternative. They saw them as an aggressive, confident, and utterly dominant brand. They were the masters of their own destiny, who set a target and completely and totally annihilated it. The E30 M3 had taken all that respect and clever engineering and infused it with the raw, potent soul of a champion. The public reaction was electric. Enthusiasts flocked to dealerships. The road-going E30 M3, despite being far more expensive than any other 3 Series, was an instant sales success. BMW found itself struggling to meet the demand. This was not just a car, it was a movement, a signal to the world that a new king of high performance had arrived. If the story ended there, with racing dominance and a massive marketing success, the E30 M3 would still be a legend. But its true significance lies in its long-term impact on BMW, and more importantly, its engineering philosophy for every M car that followed. The E30 M3 did not just create a car, it created the entire brand identity. The blueprint that Jochen Neerpasch, Paul Rosche, and the BMW Motorsport team created for that first M3 became the absolute uncompromising engineering constitution for all M cars. Look at every M3 that followed. Look at the subsequent M5s. The core principles that defined that first E30, purity, driver feedback, and precise, naturally aspirated power delivery, became the engineering DNA of every car to wear the M badge. Consider the car that followed it, the E36 M3. It was a departure in many ways, no aggressive bodywork, a different engine, but the core remained. The focus was on that signature, responsive naturally aspirated engine, now a straight 6, and that perfect balanced rear-wheel drive chassis. The engineering objective was the same, the ultimate driver's car. Then came the E46 M3, which muitos consider the true zenith of the M philosophy. Its design featured widened bodywork, a muscular front fascia, and a carbon fiber reinforced roof, all directly echoing the purest engineering decisions of the E30. The heart was a high-revving individual throttle body naturally aspirated inline-six, the S54, which was a direct, albeit more complex evolution of the S14 concept. It prioritized linear power, precise control, and mechanical purity. The E46 M3 was a powerful visual and engineering homage to the car that had started it all. Even decades later, with the introduction of turbocharging in cars like the F80 and G80 M3s, the legacy endures. BMW's engineers still strive to recreate that immediate throttle response, to preserve that visceral connection, even while navigating modern technology and emissions regulations. This is the great success of the E30 M3. It did not just win races, it created the entire philosophy of what a performance car should be. It set the highest possible standard, a standard that BMW is forced to live up to with every new M car it builds. It created a legend so powerful that even decades later, it is still the benchmark. Furthermore, the E30 M3 forced BMW as a company to integrate performance and passion into every single one of its cars. You can see its influence on the development of the base 3 series models. The focus on rear-wheel drive dynamics, near-perfect weight distribution, and precise steering became part of the entire brand's DNA, not just the performance models. The success of the M brand, the massive profitability and brand cachet, became the engine that drove the entire company. The E30 M3 didn't just change M division, it changed BMW, transforming it from a rational engineering company into an emotional, performance-driven brand. If you are a fan of these stories of automotive history and want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. What is your favorite era of BMW M history? Is the E30 M3 still the king, or do you prefer one of its legendary successors? We read every single comment, and your feedback helps us decide which topics to tackle next. So, how do we summarize the impact of this extraordinary machine? How do we quantify the legacy of a car that was built almost as an accident of racing regulations? The E30 M3 is not just the most successful touring car of all time. It is not just the defining automotive icon of the 1980s. It is the architect of a brand. It single-handedly transformed BMW from a respected manufacturer of clever cars into the global definition of automotive passion. It created the very benchmark that every other sports sedan has been chasing for decades. It proved that a car could be practical, reliable, and logical, while also being raw, visceral, and utterly exhilarating. It proved that you didn't need turbochargers or massive power to create a legendary driving experience. What you needed was a singular, purist vision, impeccable engineering, and an absolute, uncompromising commitment to being the absolute best. The E30 M3 remains the benchmark against which every high-performance sedan is measured, a car that captured the soul of a generation and became a timeless symbol of what is possible when engineering is unleashed from all compromise. It truly is the definitive story of how one extraordinary machine could and did change a brand, a sport, and the world of cars forever. Decades later, its legend still endures. Decades later, it is still, in every way that matters, the ultimate driving machine.